Cool, Paige. We are live on Facebook, and here we are in the Polarity Lab again.
Yay. This is our passion project. So thank you for being in this space with me and sharing so we can open the conversation to others who might be interested.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to be here, and we're gonna keep making it work. We're gonna figure out when and how. And I'm
Yes.
in front of my Christmas tree. Very.
I know. I love it. I love the festivity.
Yeah, so we wanted and to talk about, and I think I suggested this to talk about apologies today, and kind of from a masculine feminine perspective, but really just how it applies in relationships in general, because that is what we're talking about, the energetics between the masculine and the feminine.
Yes. And
Yeah.
where do you want to begin? Should we just let it flow, or do you want to have a framework?
Yeah, well, I want to say that when you came on here, you were running a little late, and the first thing you did was said, "I'm sorry, I'm running late." And I made a comment which I've been trying to do, and I've been trying to do this for myself and with patients in my practice to say, "Hey, we really should try to stop apologizing for things that don't warrant an apology."
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it's and and we I notice I for me this comes up often because I'll have patients come in and they'll be telling me something about their history, their past, and a parent died or a loved one or some kind of tragedy. In the past, the response from me was always, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that."
Hmm.
But then realistically, that what am I apologizing for in that moment? So something I've tried to do in for myself is to be like, oh wow, thank you for sharing that. Like that must have been really hard. Or do you want to talk more about that? And just and again, it's not that the apology is like disingenuous, because I understand why we do that,
Hmm.
because it's like, oh, that hurts. And it's not fun that you have hurt and pain around this. And, even I wish you didn't, but I didn't cause it.
Of course, yeah.
Does that make
I think it's also interesting how it's easy for us to say I'm sorry when it's in a situation like that, but it's hard to say sorry when there's shame involved or even confusion in a relationship where you're not sure if you're sorry or you're not sure if you did something wrong, or there's shame because you don't necessarily want to own it, or your ego's in the way, but it's easier to say I'm sorry, like if you bump somebody. Like
hmm
there's an easy way to just like throw it out there unconsciously, but then when it's really needed or required or it's needed, it's going to create connection or repair. It can be difficult sometimes to say I'm sorry.
yeah, I think, we should be apologizing when we have caused harm or discomfort to others. But I was like kind of thinking of this example in my head, right? Like of such so common for people to be like, "I'm sorry, I'm late. I'm sorry, I'm late." Right? And in a situation where you're disrupting the other people's time, or they were literally everyone's there waiting for you to get started, like maybe that warrants an apology. But if you're just showing up to a party that was supposed to start at 7 and you roll in at 7:30 and everybody else is going about their merry business, like is that a situation that you should apologize for not being there at 7? And I don't know that it is. I don't know that it causes any emotional harm or triggers or brings up any past, experiences. And again, I'm thinking in more like general
Mhm.
forms versus, if I had my brother is notoriously late to everything,
Yeah.
right? And so,
Mhm.
yeah, so I think, like in those situations, I mean, I know to expect it now, but I
Mhm.
think there's been times in the past where it's like, where is he? You start to feel emotionally dysregulated. And so there's
Yeah.
differences in situations.
Well, there's this yoga word that's it's not ahimsa, but it's non-stealing. And it means non-stealing from yourself, which is an interesting concept, but also non-stealing of others.
Mm,
And one of the biggest things is time, actually, because if you think about it, time is all we have. Like the present moment, we're only in the eternal now, meaning like every moment is what counts in our life. And if we're just in that moment fully present, that's all we have because the past doesn't exist and the future doesn't exist. So then this concept is like almost like a sin because it's like you're stealing from someone else. And actually it's a huge thing because when I started studying yogic philosophy, I was a child of a mother who was chronically late, sometimes an hour up to 2 hours. And I used to be left at preschool. I remember sitting for an hour to 2 hours, and they would have to call all my aunts, everybody on the emergency list to try to come get me. And then they would like, my mom was like missing in action. And then there would be all these adults trying to figure out who was going to get Paige. And I remember just standing in the playground yard after everyone had left school. And this happened more than once. I mean, numerous times. So there was like this deep abandonment wound. And I say this because where it might not be a trigger for someone else, it could be a major trigger for another person. So after growing up like this, being abandoned and forgotten about at school repeatedly over several years, now if someone's more than 10 or 15 minutes late, it's like a deep trigger for me. And I think that's what happens like in relationships is sometimes we don't know what happened to someone or
right.
the depth at which they experienced something that they could be conscious or unconscious of until it comes out that that is a wound. And so maybe someone doesn't mean any harm to be late, and maybe that's not even their pattern. But if you're on the other side experiencing it, you may need an apology, and that person might not really, why I was only late one time, or I only did this a couple times, it's no big deal. But we don't always know when we're in these situations, especially in relationship, how deeply we affect someone unconsciously. And then does it warrant an apology or is it just that's their stuff? And I think that's where it gets really tricky in relationship for apologies is like you could just be like, well, that's your shit and you figure that out and you deal with yourself, which is, I say this because it's funny. This actually came up for this Polarity Lab because it was a huge trigger in my past relationship, and it caused a lot of harm because and you and I love the work of John Wineland, but when we're in relationship, especially with an apology, if it's not safe for the other person, even if you don't think it warrants an apology, as we show up in relationship we want to make nervous system. It's not our responsibility to make the other person feel safe, but if you care and love and have compassion for the other person, then if they're in their low place and you're in your high place, then you can take your nervous system safety and kind of like be there and show up and kind of offer that nervous system safety when they're out of nervous system regulation, like when they're dysregulated and maybe you didn't feel like you really did anything wrong, you can like kind of cross that bridge and be like, I can hold you right now. I can
Yeah.
be in this space where you need me to be. And that's a very, it's like walking a tightrope, I think, in relationship, if you'll entertain this for a second, because it's not our responsibility to fix, manage, or control or step in and show up where somebody's deficient. But if we truly love someone, we can put our ego aside and say, you know what? I will say sorry, even though maybe I don't think it warrants an apology. But because I love and care so much about this person, I want to make sure that they feel safe.
Right.
Because if they can come back into regulation, then we can move through this way faster
Yeah.
than if we're both like they're dysregulated and then maybe they say hurtful things or lash out and then we're both dysregulated. Like, and that's huge. That's why I love this work so much is because in we've used this term in past polarity labs, but then we depolarize. When
Hmm.
we come into conflict, we can either ride the wave back to connection and repair, or we can both dysregulate and both be out of containment.
Yes. Yeah, containment or creating the container, that's exactly what that is for the person that's hurting. I'm curious, do you feel that it's important to let people know, partners for you early on, hey, this is an issue for me and this.
Right. So when I got into the relationship I'm in now, from the get-go, the first couple times it happened, by the third time, I was like, hey, you don't know this about me, but let me explain to you why I have this trigger. And I kind of gave that background history. And he was like, oh, that makes sense. Of course you would feel that way. So, yeah, I think we get to know our partners, we get to learn their histories, and we learn what turns them on and off or what triggers them. Um, and especially with deep wounds, they can take a long time to heal and even like understand our own nervous system regulation. Um, and so when we're talking about polarity, that containment is masculine energy.
Right.
But in relationship, the feminine could see the male dysregulated and say, I can be in containment. I can hold a container, even though I want to stay predominantly in my feminine, like 70, say you want to be in it 75% of the time. I see that it's needed right now that I be in the person that holds containment.
Yes.
So again, we talk about the weaving of the masculine and feminine. It is maybe more masculine trait predominantly shows up maybe more masculine as the feminine is like, largely emotional. But when we get into conflict, containment is huge,
Sure.
huge,
Yeah.
huge for either party, especially with apologies. Like if somebody's hurt, the way that I've come to realize this, and this is just my own path, is I don't care about being right anymore. Like
Mm,
my ego used to be like, I need to be right. Like I need to like argue this point that I didn't mean to hurt you, or, like just that was not my intent, or that, just like to argue my defensive mechanisms. But as I've grown through this pathway of learning polarity, I don't need to be right anymore. I care more about connection and repair than the need to be right.
yes. And I don't think apologies should be about right or wrong. It
Mhm.
should be about hurt. And
Yes.
I've done something, it's caused you pain. I don't want to cause you pain. Here's what I'm going to do different.
Yeah.
Can
And
you
I think
forgive me?
Yeah. And I think like, right, we talk about this in relationship, but this shows up like we're on the holidays. And I know that this can be a time where families like trigger each other. It can be some people might go through the holidays like smooth sailing, but other people it's a really difficult time as they see family they may not have seen for a year, or they don't see each other very often, or the rituals aren't well established within a family. Then this definitely is pertinent, when
Yeah.
people are distanced, estranged, not great, like siblings, and it gets really complicated.
And I think like it might be valuable to just again because we're talking about this stuff all the time, but
Mhm.
the feminine, again, not female, but energetically in this polarity dynamic is the emotional stuff. So it kind of the assumption is whoever's feeling hurt or was wounded is experiencing the feminine, and then the person, whether it's the male or female, who's offering an apology, creating the container for that space to be, for that emotion to be safe and to regulate, they're coming from that masculine space. And I think one thing that can happen is the person who is hurt wants to demand an apology or say you have to do this, or and what that is that's that feminine emotional body trying to create some sort of masculine structure to create self-regulate in their own safety. But that's where we often get lost because it's not effective. It kills the polarity completely.
Right. Yeah, because if you're demanding it, then it's not coming from free will and choice.
Yeah.
And this was huge for me in my own learning curve and my last relationship, as I felt I was due or owed an
Hmm.
apology. And that's where I realized that I needed to cultivate my own inner masculine so that when I was dysregulated, I needed to create containment for myself.
Yes.
Because if I wasn't, you can't demand it of another person. And honestly, you wouldn't want it if they did it out of not out of choice, but out of just like, oh, I just want to kind of brush this off and get this person to move on or go away, or I don't want to deal with this anymore. So it's not going to feel authentic. And that was part of the apologies, right? If you are on the side of the hurt person, and some people, if it's just good to say I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
other people, it's like I need to know that you genuinely, if it's not coming from a place of choice, then it's not real.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And but it's so common when our emotional feminine body is wounded and triggered. It's a common practice to try to exert control somewhere
Yeah,
in
and if
life
you're,
for,
yes, and
for
if
help.
you're a really strong feminine in your feminine most of the time, then creating containment for yourself can be difficult if it's not cultivated. And
Well,
what I realized is that I had to really start to cultivate my own containment.
yes. Well, it's
And that
also
was huge for me because like my whole life, I mean, I'm a very, very feminine, I have strong feminine traits. So for me, like to go into my emotional self was my go-to. It was just like that's what's normal for me. But if you're with a partner who doesn't provide containment at the level that you need it, then you really have to rely on yourself.
yes. I think
And
well, I
that's
think you
huge because a
well,
lot of women expect the men to do it. And some of them are good at it, but some of them like may not have the training to know how to hold containment, period.
well, for the men, for sure, that's not being taught and demonstrated. And again, many women today, a lot of their work life, home life is lived in the masculine. I mean, the number of, women that I see just in my practice that are like, oh, I call the shots at home. I'm the one who makes all the plans. So again, it plays out in this way of like, I'm going to tell you how to apologize. I'm going to tell you what you did wrong. And, I think guys wanting to appease and who exist in that place where we don't have the more traditional polarity roles, playing out in the relationship, they'll do it. They'll cave and they'll acquiesce. And again, it doesn't come across as genuine. Over time, it builds resentment and it doesn't go in where it should go to
Right. But
repair.
there's from the feminine perspective, there is a true gift in the emotional body coming to the masculine energy, even if the masculine doesn't feel sorry or not understanding what they really did wrong or it wasn't intentional. I think that's the main thing that I see is it wasn't intentional.
All the time.
And so the feminine's like, I don't care if it wasn't intentional, it
Yeah.
hurts.
Right.
And what I think that the beauty of the feminine in this, if you want to say, okay, you don't even need to go into containment of your own nervous system regulation if you're truly feminine, you just drop fully into your heart.
Hmm.
Because as soon as the feminine can surrender and drop fully into her heart, I mean, the masculine just steps in.
Yes. Yeah.
Like so instead of like, because I think what was happening for me is I was like, well, I'm not getting what I want, and then I got to figure out how to like contain myself, but this isn't natural for me. But what was easier is just be like, oh my God, what if I just soften and fall fully into my heart?
I'm hurt. I'm
I'm
just,
hurt. And like you don't have to save me, but witness me.
yeah.
Just like I don't need you to apologize, but can you just
Yeah. And I think often
witness my tears, witness me,
well,
like, and even like going from, so this is why this works powerful too, is moving from words into embodiment expression.
mhm,
Like, so if you are saying, I need an apology, why aren't you giving me what I want and need right now? It's just, you don't really want and need it. What you really need is to feel fully in the feminine, right? If we're in this scenario, just feel it so deeply that you express it without any words at all.
yeah.
Because the masculine, if they see the feminine in tears and crying, the knee-jerk reaction is to want to hold her
Mhm.
or comfort her, which is containment.
Right. Right. And that's ultimately, I think both parties, both energies are wanting to feel repair and wanting to feel close, but it's so typical to get into a right or wrong, litigation against each other when like, oh, no, and something that I thought was interesting. I made a video about this. Karen Brody is a men's coach who I've worked with, and she wrote a book called Open Her, and I'm on her email newsletter. And what she was saying, she was like, often the feminine carries emotional memories. And so sometimes something happens and the response inside is actually the memory of past transgressions. And maybe in the moment, it wasn't the same. It wasn't the transgression. It's not something that should actually, nothing wrong was done, per what we've discussed in the past. And I wasn't actually repeating a behavior I'd said I wasn't going to do anymore, but it's experienced in that feminine heart, like, oh, this is the same thing again. And then we get in these scenarios where it's like, well, maybe an apology isn't the right thing. Like it's not an apology, there's some other practice. Because again, because otherwise it is oh, I'm sorry you feel that way, or I'm sorry you reacted this way to what I didn't do, or does that make sense? Like it's
Oh, totally. And I think there's also from the feminine right now, as we talk about like the feminine rising, I think what's happening for the feminine with the masculine energy collectively is we're holding a collective pain.
mm,
Like, I think that's hard to comprehend because, like, I'll take it from this vantage point, like racism. I didn't grow up of color. I'll never know or experience what it's like to be of color because it's not, I grew up as a white Caucasian woman. So I'm never really I can empathize, but I'll never truly know what it's like.
that experience.
But because women really are the intuitive body, they feel collectively, they're empathic. And so even though it may not be ancestral or historic, I feel like we carry a collective consciousness. I mean, males do too, but because there's that strong intuitive feminine, I feel like women are kind of coming forth and saying, we're not punishing males through patriarchy, but there needs to be some form of reconciliation,
Hmm.
like a collective healing that needs to happen. Um, it's not that you did something wrong,
Right.
but that patriarchy happened and we're all responsible, masculine and feminine alike. I mean, that's another conversation maybe for another day, but regardless, I think that there's like a retribution, but it doesn't have to be punishment.
It shouldn't be.
It's like I think what it really is, the feminine is just wanting a witnessing.
Well,
Because the
and
feminist want us to be seen.
the,
So
fe- the feminine has not been seen. There's been no models of feminine strength, femininity.
right.
And
So I
so
think
so people coming from the feminine think, "Oh, I'm going to exert my power in the only way I've witnessed, which is a masculine patriarchy directive." So
mhm,
we've got the feminine energy and hurt and anger, and they're trying to control, and it's not working. It's
right.
hurting
So the
everybody.
wounded feminine, if it asserts its power as control, it's moved into the masculine. Whereas I
Yes.
think what really the what I call the divine, I make a distinction between wounded feminine and divine feminine.
Good.
The divine feminine just says because the divine aspect is just the feminine wants to be seen and
Yeah.
heard and felt.
Yeah.
And so if it can just say, I don't need you to, the retribution is just to witness,
Yes.
just to be the witness and acknowledgement of the pain.
Yeah.
And that's the same in like the macro and the micro
Hmm. And
is is just can you witness that I'm emotionally hurting And I don't need you, when I come from a more conscious place, I don't need your apology. What I really crave is connection and repair and just to witness me
Yeah.
in
And
my,
then that safety to be the full expression of the divine, beautiful feminine, the goddess energy, which women are and men adore and want to see.
Mhm.
And so I think, we're trying to get back to that in some way. And I think that's part of, again, what you and I are trying to help in our own individual ways and collective way.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like really transformative when I love the somatic aspect of nervous system regulation when you move from blame and shame and criticism or demands to being felt and seen,
Mm,
witnessed.
yeah. Apologies are a heavy conversation. I mean,
I know,
there's
I think we could do like 4 or 5 labs on apologies, like go through each apology script and style.
yeah, in different scenarios. I'm sure we can all both share stories where we've done it really well and really poorly. And
Oh, I've done it. I've done it more poorly than right.
yeah, I mean, that's the so common one, the I'm sorry you feel that way, or I'm so.
Oh, it's like that's like my trigger. Like you feel that way. It's like, oh, like
And I
sorry, you feel that way, but I'm not apologizing.
Well, and from a masculine perspective, it's like we don't want to hurt. We're here to help, to solve problems, to build. And so it does come into that thing. Well, that wasn't my intention,
Mhm.
but I think when a man is able to cultivate presence and self-awareness, then any shift in the feminine, it has the potential to be a really transformative sign. It's like, hey, something's a little bit off. And again, it doesn't have to mean
Right.
you did
Yes,
something.
I love that.
Yeah,
Yes,
it doesn't
because
have to mean you did something wrong, but there's an opportunity here. And if you don't take it on, because maybe it isn't you, maybe, and even maybe she's trying to make it about you, but that might just be a projection. And listen to it. Or maybe you did slip up a little bit. Listen to
well,
it.
I think that's the distinction where this work becomes really fascinating is how much of this is your own shadow work, and then
Mhm.
how much of this is really your oracle as the feminine, your intuition to be like, I sense things more in the 5D through the third eye, the multi-dimensional space, whereas the male's like very in the here and now, like focused energy, more 3D, and the feminine can play more in the intuitive clairvoyant realm of seeing outside of the scope that the male is so focused, he can't always see the full picture.
Right.
So we have the distinction. I think that's why I go back between the wounded feminine and the divine is like if we check ourselves at the door, then you have to have that self-inquiry to be like what's really happening here. And
100%.
it can be both.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And again, we don't have to be right or wrong to want to repair and to want to cultivate more love in these dynamics.
And that's ultimately the goal of the polarity work is to create connection and repair and to keep that polarity alive and working for us.
Yes. 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 Well, my youngest daughter is graduating from college today, so I need to get
Yeah.
moving to head down to Lexington, but I
Yes,
definitely
to go and witness her.
yeah, and all her awesomeness. And I know we'll be talking about this more, and we're going to continue to be doing these polarity labs, all building up till towards our Between the Poles workshop, the weekend after Valentine's Day in
So
Louisville.
yeah, so if you enjoy these conversations and you can go back and watch the other ones, then please join us for our Polarity Lab the weekend after Valentine's Day in February.
Yeah, and that's going to be something in person with other people, and these conversations are going to spread out past just us, and then we're going to be able to break off into groups of men and groups of women and talk about this and hold space for each other. And I'm just super excited about 2026. I know we've only got a couple
Yes.
weeks left here, and we're gonna do some cool stuff.
Well, thank you for putting this together and always holding space for these polarity labs, Peter. You're in your strong masculine, keeping me. It was scheduled and on time, so thank you.
I appreciate you. I'll
Thank you
talk to
so
you
much.
soon.
Okay,
All right.
bye.